Welcome to Ask the Tech Coach, brought to you by the TeacherCast Educational Network. If you are in charge of professional development and looking to build an innovative digital learning experience, this is the podcast for you. Join us each week as we uncover strategies that tech coaches are using to drive their digital transformations one classroom at a time. And now for your host, with over 2 decades of experience working with tech coaches and ed tech companies from all around the world, Jeff Bradbury.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Thank you so much for joining us today and making TeacherCast your home for professional development. This is Ask the Tech Coach Live, episode number 98. Today, we're going to be talking all about Microsoft education and what we can do with our classrooms and Microsoft Sway. I have a great guest today who is not only an MIE, but comes to us from NCCE, an amazing training organization, and we're going to be talking about what you guys can do with Sway. I want to bring on both of our co-hosts today, Miss Susan Vincent and Scott Bricker. Guys, how are you today? Welcome to the show.
Great to be back and looking forward to what we've got planned in July. Lots of tech coach tools to bring your way, starting today with Scott telling us all about Microsoft Sway. I'm excited.
Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, you guys. Really happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. Scott, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're really knee-deep in Microsoft education stuff. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I'm the Director of Educational Technology at Santa Margarita Catholic High School in Southern California. We're a 9-12 private high school, and we're one of about 40 Microsoft Showcase schools in the country. So we've been all in on Microsoft technology for just finished our 7th year, actually. With all that, so Teams, OneNote, Sway, you name it. We've been doing it for a few years now, and been super happy, and seeing a lot of gains in and out of the classroom with those tools. So, in addition, I'm an MIEE expert, so super connected with all the great teacher folks and educators around the country, and then I'm also a professional learning specialist with NCCE. So I get a chance to do a lot of the training with districts and schools around the country, which is great. I bring a lot of my experiences and conversations back to my own school, so it kind of benefits two sides there. But yeah, like you said, heavily involved in Microsoft, all in on how it can help us change education and seeing where we go with it.
And I'm so glad that you're here, because we have a huge announcement for anybody listening right now. On July 11th, we are going to be presenting, along with our friends at NCCE, a full day Microsoft education conference. It's going to be running from 9 to 3 Eastern. We're going to have amazing MIE speakers, and you're going to find out about it all over on teachercast.net. And of course, you can check out more information about it over on askthetechcoach.com. We're going to be putting up a whole schedule as we get through the next couple days. And if you're looking to learn how to bring Microsoft education into your class, check out all the great work over at teachercast.net/Microsoft EDU. And Scott, today we're going to be talking about one of those applications that's a part of the Microsoft 365 suite, but many people aren't quite sure what it is, where it is, and how to use it. Today, we're going to be talking about Sway.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and I think with the recent events in the world, Teams certainly seems to get all the publication and marketing now, which rightfully so. It's an amazing tool. And Sway was super, super exciting when it came out, and I think it's kind of fallen behind a little bit. But especially during these times, and really any time in education, I think the way you can build Sways quickly and share information, I think is fantastic for teachers and tech coaches and administrators and everybody. So definitely looking forward to sharing some ideas about how we might use it today and every day in our classrooms and around our campuses.
You know, you can look at Sway as a presentation tool. You can look at it as a communication tool. One of the ways that I like using it each and every year, and I know you do this too, Scott, is by using it to fill out my Microsoft Innovative Educator application. This is that time for those applications. Did you fill yours out yet, Scott?
It's in the works. I'm always a last couple days guy because I've got to do my MIE expert, and I'm also in charge of our showcase school application too. So I'm always bouncing back and forth, but I'll have it in the next week or so.
The question I want to bring up here is, what is an MIE expert?
Yes.
It's a great question. How long do you have?
Well, we've run
out. Yeah, right. I think, well, first of all, it's a recognition of educators who are doing amazing things with Microsoft tools. From a Microsoft perspective, I think they love bringing in educators into the fold. Many of the folks in our group have played a big role in shaping some of the tools, giving feedback on Sway and Teams and OneNote, and Microsoft is truly listening to the words and the experiences and the needs of educators everywhere, and making their products kind of match that. But even beyond that, for me, the MIEE experts are everything. They're my family. They're my professional learning network. They're my go-to gurus. I'm in several text and Facebook and Twitter chats. And whenever I have a question about anything or an idea, you're bound to get 5, 10, 15 responses in no time at all. So it's this massive network of educators and the most passionate, creative, wonderful people you've ever met, who are just interested in helping. They want to be involved. They want to have a voice, and they want to be connected to educators around the country. So if you haven't applied or you haven't looked into it, and you're using Microsoft technology in your campus or your school, I highly recommend the program. It's an amazing group of people.
Check out everything over at education.microsoft.com and get those applications in. Again, we're going to be doing our Microsoft whole day conference on July 11th, just to get everybody ready for those applications. And Scott, I believe the applications are due on the 15th?
15th of July, yep.
15th.
Excellent. So
I'm working on mine.
Got to get those in there, Susan. Sway, right? It is a presentation tool. It is a communication tool, like we said. But today we're going to look at 5 different things that you can use Sway for in the classroom. Scott, what is one of the first things that we want to be thinking about when we comes with Sway?
Yeah, I think the kind of the easiest way to get into it, and you nailed it. It's a great presentation tool. I kind of describe it as a kicked up PowerPoint, if you will. You can do kind of all the same things you can do with the PowerPoint and then some. But the first way I use it is kind of for a weekly newsletter. And I've done this as a teacher. I've done it. I kind of am a tech coach in my role, working with our teachers. So I use it for our ed tech newsletter. But it's a great way just to bring in information. You can share videos, you've got text, you've got images and screenshots. So I think the ability to seamlessly and easily bring those things together is a great way to share information. I know that we're all just bombarded daily with emails. So the email updates seem to just get deleted, or if they're read, they're kind of read sort of haphazardly, and people don't really get the content. So I think the flow and the user experience when using Stream really seems to have that information sink in. So I think a weekly or monthly or whatever kind of newsletter you put out, I think is a great use for Sway.
You know, one of the things that I love about that concept is that you could make a Sway and embed it on anything that you need. It works on OneNote, it works on Teams, it even works on Google Sites. You can make a Sway and have it be anywhere, and it's really that opportunity to create one piece of content and then share it. And not only share it, but it is so dynamic and rich with pictures and videos and text and collages, and you know, it could really be anything that you want it to be in that newsletter.
Yeah, it definitely can. And I think one of the other things that I like is it's focused on content. You've got all those preset, designs and backgrounds. You can just click a button and it will change your entire layout. You don't have to be a graphic designer or, a fancy artist to be able to put it together. You can really focus on the content and then let the kind of the magic of Sway take over, and build, fonts and colors and that kind of thing to your liking. So I love that the focus is on content, because that's, after all, what we do as teachers and educators and tech coaches.
Now, so we've talked a lot about newsletters in the past. We've talked about, the making a Google slide, doing a PDF. Why do we want to be making newsletters, especially in a time of COVID and uncertainty? Why is this important for us?
Well, for me, it's getting those tech tips out there to my teachers so they know what's going on, whether it, is pertinent to them right at the moment. I have them there, and then I can refer to them later. So something that's interactive to give them those tips, rich in content that's visual for them to be able to see, and there's a demonstration of how that they can access whatever tip it may be. That's huge and important. So the richness in content that I'm hearing about with Sway is very intriguing, and I was going to tell Scott this here in a moment. I'm, a self-proclaimed Google girl, so I'm kind of still a little bit, I used Microsoft years ago, but I've been immersed in Google for a few years. So, Jeff is bringing me back into the Microsoft world a little bit here, and so I'm learning. So this is great stuff.
Scott, I got her onto Teams this week.
Love it. That's the best. Change your world. Change your world. Maybe change your life. I don't know.
And you know, the idea of creating a newsletter or some kind of, you know, informational thing, handing it to your students, handing it to your teachers really goes into the second thing that we can use Microsoft Sway for. Scott, what's the second thing on our list today?
I think of it as a great tool for the flipped classroom. And I know I'm always careful with these, you know, education buzzwords. And I think flipped classroom has kind of gone back and forth between a great tool and just a passing buzzword that may go away. But clearly in these times, the idea of having to reinvent your classroom is here for a while. And I know many of us are still trying to figure out what our schools and districts are going to look like this fall. But to flip your classroom and kind of provide some of that information forward and really get the classroom to be more student-centered, I love Sway for that. You know, it really is, as you said, Jeff, really is like a newsletter, right? It's a newsletter for your students. But being able to kind of front load and preload that content, share, if you're a math teacher, maybe it's share a Khan Academy video, or if you're a social studies teacher, you know, there's all kinds of rich content and videos out there from historical events throughout the years. And then adding in text and questions, and just the way you can kind of front load that information is super helpful so that you can get that done the night before. And then when students come to class, you can have these really deep, interactive, engaging conversations with your students, as opposed to all of that engaging work being done by themselves in a traditional setting where they would, you know, watch the video in class and then go home and do homework. So I think kind of flipping that idea of the classroom just normally is great, but especially in these times where you're, you know, maybe online, hybrid, face-to-face, maybe flipping back and forth depending on, you know, what your schools and districts are doing. It's a great tool to be able to get content out to your students.
So
go ahead.
So talk a little bit about, you know, we're talking about the flipped classroom, then tagging off of that, what about a tech coach? Can you refer to a little bit about how we as a tech coach might use Sway for flipped professional development?
Yeah, absolutely, Susan. In just the same way, right? Instead of, you know, it's really interesting to me that we see as educators, we seem to break all of the rules. We talk about, you know, being more student-centered and engaging classrooms. And then we go to PD and conferences, and what do we do all day? We sit in a room and people talk at us,
Absolutely.
right? Breaking basically every rule of education and training. So I'm hoping we all kind of get on board with building these more engaging environments. And I think Sway can be a part of that with, again, front-loading that information, right? Sharing a video ahead of time, objectives, documents, screenshots, allowing people to kind of get an idea. It's kind of like watching the movie trailer, right? You want to get an idea of what's kind of happening in the movie, and then when you go and see it, now you're totally immersed. So kind of in that same way, I think it's a great tool for PD to front load that information for your teachers and trainees.
You know, Scott, one of the things that I like about Sways is that they are so dynamic in how you can build them. You can build them vertically, you can build them horizontally. And, you know, I love Google Slides, but the same format over and over again, no matter how crazy they look, it's still a slide deck over and over again. I love that with Sways, everything is different. And Sway has a magic button, doesn't it? It says design for you. It can automatically create whatever kind of layout that you want with all the different fonts and colors and themes and stuff. It is really easy to get started.
It really is. And I agree with you on both Google Slides and PowerPoint, right? All of those slide presentation software and tools, they're great and they serve a purpose. And I think if you know how to use them, they can be very effective. But I think you nailed it, Jeff, with the user interface, being able to scroll vertically or horizontally. It's a more seamless, engaging interaction with the content. It kind of feels like reading a website, how it flows.
Exactly.
And your eye seems to follow the information a little bit better, more than just clicking from slide to slide.
And the nice thing about that is it really allows you to, and this is the third thing here, you know, thinking about building these Sways as, you know, as curriculum guides, textbooks, as a tech coach, we're looking at this and saying, you know, how do we build all of our presentations off of this? And that way we then share a Sway with somebody, not, again, boring slide decks and boring websites and stuff, something that really has interactive content. Tell us a little bit, maybe, are your classrooms, are your students and teachers using them for textbook aids, manipulatives, etc.?
Yeah, we do have some kind of move in that way. And on the classroom side, that's been one of my biggest, I guess it's a struggle and frustration with this whole ed tech movement, is that the big box publishers, whose names we won't mention, really haven't evolved. They're still doing the same thing. They're still producing the same static textbooks. And oftentimes if they produce an ebook, an interactive ebook, it's a PDF, right?
Absolutely.
They PDF the textbook and they put it on a website. That's not an interactive textbook in my mind. And that's what Sway, I think, allows you to create. Now, granted, if you're talking about building an entire textbook, that's quite an undertaking. But if you can kind of chunk it in smaller doses and do like little lessons and tidbits here and there, maybe weekly, I think it's a great tool, again, for bringing in a video, then a passage, then some questions, then maybe a link to a form so you can get a little quiz. I mean, just there's so many different ways you can go. And as you said earlier, Jeff, being able to embed it on a website, share it in Teams, share it through Office 365, put a link in an email. I mean, we could go on and on about how you can share it. But I think kind of reimagining your curriculum and making your curriculum more engaging can only help the learners kind of, be more passionate and enjoy the learning process a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm loving that concept. A lot of districts, including my own, are big on mapping the curriculum and having those available. And what an awesome way to use Sway is map that curriculum, make it interactive, and all the links are there for those each unit as we move forward. Love that concept.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Susan, and as a tech coach too, right, having that consistency, right, that it's the same format every time. We're not on one website this week and one the next, and the format's all over the place. I mean, you can kind of develop a template, if you will, right, or kind of a signature presentation format to it, which is great for the attendees, obviously.
Yes, great stuff.
Now, Scott, Sways are not just for teachers to make up cool stuff, right? You can use them with your students as well. What's the fourth thing that we might be able to do with our Sways?
Absolutely. Students and teachers too, if you have a tech coach that works on teacher portfolios. But for portfolios and assessment, I think it's an amazing tool. It seems like a lot of the conversation around assessment is still trying to move us away from these high stakes, multiple choice, SAT, ACT type exams, even down into the early grades, first, second, third grade. And I think when you talk about authentic assessment, it's really putting the control in the hands of the student or the teacher, again, depending on your role. And I think Sway is amazing for that. So I've seen, in fact, my students this year built some Sways. We did an end of the year reflection portfolio. I teach a calculus class in addition to my role as director of ed tech. So instead of, getting up in front of the classroom, obviously we were all at home, so we had to get creative. So some used PowerPoint, some used Sway, and presented their knowledge on the year. So they were able to bring in examples of them doing problems in OneNote, screenshots from their notes, recording their audio. They were able to truly reflect on what grade they think they deserved and how they learned. And while it took me a lot longer to grade those projects, I learned so much more than just running a Scantron through a machine, or grading 2 or 3 problems on a test on topics that I chose. They had the power. They got to choose what they shared with me about what they learned. And it was incredible. It was really insightful and super interesting to learn from them, as opposed to, again, just looking at scores and how many answers they've gotten done correctly.
What great real world experience. That's the stuff we do in our jobs from day to day. We have to create presentations to reflect on what we've done instead of just writing up a test to answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Susan, when was the last time you took a high stakes multiple choice exam?
Been a little bit.
Right. I mean, it's not a real thing. We don't do it. We get tested on our knowledge all the time, but we're not thrown into a room in a high tension, very stressful hour-long situation as often as we do for our kids. And we're adults. We could probably handle a little bit better than the 14 to 18-year-olds that I work with, or certainly down into the elementary school ages. But
Scott, I know that you do a lot of presenting, and I'm looking at your Twitter here of Bricker Coaching. Talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you're doing. Am I correct in thinking that you recently did an amazing session for NCCE?
I've done a couple. I don't know if it was amazing, but I appreciate you saying that. I've been presenting on a lot of things. I mean, I started out a couple years ago, obviously presenting on heavily OneNote and Teams and the applications of those tools. And my passions and interests have kind of evolved from there. So recently I've been talking a lot about a tool called Power Automate in the Microsoft platform, which is an amazing tool to kind of automate your life, really. Being able to like pull in, have people fill out a form and then automatically send an email or populate a spreadsheet or add to a team. I mean, it's basically block computer coding. And it can kind of automate a lot of your daily tasks and free up time for you to really do the important work and not the administrative clerical work that a lot of us tech coaches get, sort of mired down in the weeds with, if you will. So I've been talking about that. And I've also been big into brain research and understanding how I'm not doing the brain research, to be clear. I'm not at that level by any means, but understanding the brain research that is out there, which is more prevalent than it's ever been, and having that help us shape how we teach and train, understanding how the brain works and really creating classrooms that meet the needs of our learners, as opposed to just rolling out the same classroom that the three of us were in, 10, 20, 30 years ago or more. So really trying to evolve education and make it better and more effective for teachers and students across the entire campus.
I had a chance to check out the live from NCCE session that you did with the Power Automate stuff. And, that's something that I'm learning about here as TeacherCast moves even more into a Microsoft 365 environment to help us stay organized. And, like I said earlier, Sue and I are now doing Teams. We're creating an entire tech coaches network right now, all from Microsoft Teams. And so if you're out there looking, we're going to be launching that on August 1st. So look for more information about that in our weekly newsletter. But really, there's a lot of great stuff that's out there. And one of the things that I know is you can't do these things alone. And you can't really always make a sway alone. Scott, what's that fifth thing that we want to be thinking about when creating Microsoft sways?
Yeah, one of those 4 C's, right? One of the essential 21st century skills of collaboration. Kind of back to our conversation, Susan, we're doing it right now, right? We collaborate every day.
Yes.
There are very few jobs in this country now that are done alone, right? Where you're in an office or in a cubicle by yourself. We're constantly collaborating, and now collaborating globally, right? With the inventive technologies and tools and apps. So Sway is amazing for that. Groupwork and collaboration. It's super easy to share a link out for collaboration. So there's 2 different share links you can send out. One to access the Sway and another to send out to collaborate. So you can collaborate in real time. Teachers in your own school, across your own district. We talk about our MIEE expert. I've done a couple where I've worked with MIEE experts around the country. So you've got somebody in New York and Florida working with me in California in real time, being able to add and build this content. Opportunities we never would have had 5 and 10 years ago without these technologies. So again, really showing those essential skills and the things that our students and teachers will be using forever, really. I mean, that this is not going to turn around and go in the other direction. Right. It's only going to get, more impactful in our environment to have these collaborative tools.
Very much.
It's the collaboration, it's the communication, it's the way to, take this boxy thing, whether it be slides, PowerPoint, something that's a rectangle, and really expand that rectangle. I love the fact that with Sways, again, you can do them vertically, horizontally. It just scrolls and scrolls and scrolls, and it's very, very rich. You can do anything that you're looking for, and it's embeddable. And by the way, we didn't even mention this yet, Scott. It looks great on a mobile device, on a phone, on a tablet. It just works really great. Of course, if there's other people out there that have great looking Sways, we would love to hear from you guys. Maybe share them. We're going to be embedding a few of them on our show notes here. This is Ask the Tech Coach podcast, episode number 98. Again, we're looking forward to a great time this summer. We're going to be doing our Microsoft 365 event on July 11th. Scott, I hope you're a part of that.
I'm in. I'm in. Just let me know what to do. Happy to be there.
And of course, we're going to be celebrating here the fact that Sue is going to be putting in her MIEE application, right, Sue?
Working on it.
Right,
Just
Sue?
got to figure out that Sway. I've learned a lot right now from Scott. I got the expert on my side here.
Excellent so much. Scott, where can we learn more about the great stuff you're doing?
Definitely Twitter is probably the best. Follow me at Bricker Coaching. I try and put as much out there as I can. I do a lot of retweeting because of the network. Again, it's mostly MIEE experts, but also other educators that I follow. But Twitter is obviously the best place to find me. Message me, send me a tweet, whatever I can do to help with Sway, Teams, OneNote, or just teaching in general. Always happy to have a conversation and connect and engage with like-minded, passionate educators around the country.
And of course, if you want to find out more information about Office 360 or Microsoft 365, my goodness, and all those great things, check out the hashtag MIEE Expert for all things MIEs. And don't forget to put your applications in. Head on over to education.microsoft.com and check out all the great stuff happening in your neighborhood with your local MIEs. Sue, 98 episodes. Next week, we are going to be doing a little surfing, aren't we? We're going to be riding that Wakelet wave.
Yes, I can't wait.
We have a great guest coming on. Bruce Riker is going to be on next week. Scott, have you ridden the Wakelet wave?
I'm in the shallow end. I definitely dipped my toe a little bit, and Wakelet's another just amazing tool. We're kind of getting to the point where there's so many tools you got to kind of pull back and make some decisions. But yeah, Wakelet's amazing for content curation and collection, and really, really cool tool. I'm looking forward to that episode.
And we're going to be doing some other great things this summer, focusing a little bit on the tools that you're using in the classroom, tools that you can use to be training your teachers on. And I know we've been focusing, Sue, on this Microsoft date again on July 11th, but what I'm looking forward to is August 8th, when we do our Tech Coach full day training. We're going to talk a little bit about that as we go through here, but we've got 3 amazing online PDs this summer, July 11th, 25th, which is going to be featuring all the Google educators. And then on the August 8th, we're going to be doing a Tech Coaches Day from Tech Coaches by Tech Coaches. And we are looking for you to be presenters in that. If you guys are interested, check us out. More information on that's going to be coming over the next couple weeks. Guys, we're going to wrap up Tech Coach Live. Thank you so much for everybody who is watching live on YouTube, watching live on Facebook. We're going to be doing this every single Thursday at 10 a.m. to the best of our abilities. And Scott, one more time, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you, Scott.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Great to be with you, and happy to come back whenever you need me. Always good to chat.
And that wraps up this episode of the Ask the Tech Coach podcast, episode number 98. Don't forget, you can find everything over on AskTheTechCoach.com and find us on Twitter at AskTheTechCoach. And on behalf of Scott and Sue and everybody here in the TeacherCast Educational Network, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you guys to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.
You've been listening to Ask the Tech Coach, hosted by Jeff Bradbury of the TeacherCast Educational Network. Please reach out to the show with all of your questions on Twitter at AskTheTechCoach or online at www.askthetechcoach.com. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And please take a moment to write a review in the App Store.